we're discussing one of the intricacies of tabletop role playing, such as Dungeons and Dragons or Pathfinder.
Mm.
So we're discussing one of the harder parts of playing an RPG as well, at least for me. Maybe it's not harder for other people, but this is an indulgent podcast and I'm being selfish, so I picked the topic. And that is separating your character from yourself. So to set the stage, for example, my current character, Feyre Osenda, is much different than myself. And any other characters I've created, really. So I worked really hard, in my mind anyway, maybe it's not coming across, to create a character that's really flawed. And sometimes I struggle to make choices for her because I know what the right answer is, or at least I know what Mandy wants to do, but sometimes Feyre's stupid. Or she's really selfish, or she's doesn't want to do these things, but she knows she has to, right?
Right.
So what do you think about this, Katie? Do you struggle with this too, or am I just like weird?
I don't actually think I've
is a little rude, actually.
no, you're not weird. I'll answer that just straight out. I don't actually know if I've had a really struggling. Wait, no, I take that back. I haven't struggled too much with Aelvid, even when, she punched someone in the face. But
No. Let's rewind. She didn't punch someone in the face. She punched a decrepit old man servant in the face for no reason. Anyway, continue.
Pause. I think I hear a child. Okay, it's still recording. Hold on, I'm gonna itch the eyeball. I should have done look.
Really class A content right here.
All right.
So you're saying you haven't really struggled with Aelvid outside of punching that old man in the face?
Yes, not too much. With Olivera, I did, because like you have mentioned with your character, Feyre, she is in some ways, her personality is much different than yours. Olivera in some ways was much different than mine, or the fact that maybe in game with Olivera, I wanted to attack these people, or I wanted to progress in that way with all y'all and like fight and just like demolish everything because it was so much easier that way. But with Olivera, I had made choices where she was like, no, she's not going to fight. She's not going to do this. She's not going to kill people. And I know at different times it drove y'all nuts, but like it also drove me nuts. And I was like, oh my gosh.
So I want to clarify. It never drove Mandy nuts.
Yes.
It drove Maeve nuts. Because I was like, very clearly they need to die.
Right.
Because she was a pirate, right? She was good, but she was a pirate. She has murdered people. So so I ask because like I feel like you're really good at this. Like even when you played Olivera, like I knew you were making choice because I played with you before and I know you so well. Like you were playing contrary to your instinct.
Right.
A lot of times. But it never, to me anyway, maybe you were like internally screaming, but it never felt like you were having to do mental gymnastics to get to a choice. So how do you combat the urge to make, maybe Aelvid's a bad example. So like when you were playing Olivera, what did you do to like combat the urge to make Caitlyn decisions instead of Olivera decisions?
I guess I have had it with Olivera or with Aelvid too. What have I done to combat the urge?
Or like, what do you do to not do it?
Right.
Maybe that's
no,
a better phrase.
No, they're both good. I'm just trying to think. I don't know if I do anything specific or necessarily. I don't know. I think I just am like, just do it. That's lame, but
well, no, if that's the answer, I mean, it's not lame. That's just your answer. Maybe this is classic Mandy for anybody who knows me, but like I make things more complicated than they need to be a lot of times. So like for Feyre,
give me an example of what's been like hard.
Like, so a couple things with Feyre have been difficult for me. One, she's a lot, I know she comes across timid, and I played her that way in the beginning for her to be timid. We've discussed that, but
right.
She's much more reserved than I am.
Yes, very much so.
So that's hard for me because like there's an NPC that always flirts with Feyre, And Mandy's inclination, because it drives my husband crazy, is to flirt right back because it's funny.
Right.
Um, but Feyre doesn't know, like, that she is she doesn't find herself unattractive. She just, because she was so isolated, she doesn't realize that she is attractive, right?
Right.
So she doesn't lean into it. Whereas my other characters, like myself, I'm not saying I think I'm stunning, but I don't think I'm unfortunate looking, right? So Maeve and Ariadne, they were aware that they were attractive and they used that,
Right.
right, where they could. Because I love charisma based characters, so why wouldn't you? So for me, what I've had to do is come up with story reasons or narrative
Okay.
reasons that Feyre isn't doing things,
Okay.
right? Like, because I'm also learning, I also like getting in the fray a little bit, not as much as you do with combat. Like, I love doing a ton of damage,
Hmm.
like that's super fun, but you can also do that with spells, which is
Yes.
where a lot more creativity can come in, which is fun for me but also hard.
Right.
So I guess that is hard. Like, so in social situations for Feyre specifically, right? Because she is so different from me. And I didn't realize when I was creating her, but I think I created her really just not, I wasn't in a dark place when I created her, but I think I just found out I was pregnant.
Mm.
It was a surprise, and well, no, that's not when I created her. I think you guys had just moved. We had just gotten separated when I started creating
That's when you
Feyre.
met. Oh.
Yeah, and I think she came out of a point of depression, right? Where it's like,
Yeah.
okay, Feyre has somehow turned into, I'm realizing all the things I don't love about myself can come up sometimes with Feyre, and it's a fun way to like work through those things. Like, I
Yeah.
have moments
Absolutely.
where I can be more timid. Um they happen less and less as I get older, and I'm not going to say I get more confident. I just care less about what other people think.
Makes
Um
sense.
but so social situations like that can be challenging for
Mhm.
me because Mandy just wants to go out and ask, how do we free Mother Day? Right? Like Mandy wants
Right.
to do that, where Feyre wouldn't be that direct.
Right.
You
Absolutely.
know? So
That
that can
makes
be difficult.
sense. I do think you're doing a really great job with it. I've told Chris many times, like, wow, Farah is so vastly different from your other characters, from like you. And I know you just said that, that's it's a culmination of like different parts of yourself that maybe you don't love as much, but she is just so different. And I have seen the restraint that you have shown and not, like you said, not joining in on a conversation where normally you would, or not um gosh, so many different things. And that's like a testament to you of just like how great of a job that you are at doing this, like portraying the character, acting, whatever you want to call it, but just like really becoming that character. And it makes it really fun when you do that, because when the people that you're playing with are that into their characters, it's so much easier for you to be as well, especially like maybe if there's someone who's a little timid to do that. If everyone else is doing it, it's like, oh, okay, my people, I can do
Yeah,
this.
this is a safe space. No,
It is.
that's a good point too, because it's also fun for me. Like, I had a lot of fun, especially you, because you know me, I think, outside of Jason, like the
Mhm.
best out of the group. And it was fun for me to see your face when you met my character, because you were like, what? Coming from a really gregarious, boisterous character that is Maeve, going into Feyre, who she's the I'm gonna say she's the oldest of the group, even though technically Fifth is 2 months old. Okay, 3 months old, somewhere
It's
in there.
true. It's just
Technically,
a wee babe.
just do a little one, even though he's wholly undead. It's a whole thing. Um, but
Annoying.
in my head, she's the oldest of the group biologically, but she's probably the youngest socially and
Uh-huh.
developmentally. Um, and that's been interesting to play. And I think one thing that I have found has helped me is making choices beforehand, right?
Oh, oh yeah.
When I created the character, being like, okay, how is she going to act when she receives romantic attention? Because even if there wasn't an NPC flirting with me, my husband's going to end up flirting with me in game. We've talked about it. He's adorable. He can't resist doing it. So it is really cute. I had to think about how would Feyre react to that
Yeah.
beforehand, right? And I think she's changed. At least I hope her development is showing as we grow and as we play. But that's also hard to start because I got into a really comfortable, Feyre is timid and reserved box, and I don't have to make uncomfortable choices or bring up uncomfortable topics. Feyre won't.
Yes.
But it's hard to be like, or I'm struggling to know when to pull restraint, pull my restraint on my restraint back, right?
Right.
Being like, okay, this is a moment where Feyre would lean in a little bit more, or she wants to lean in more.
Yeah.
Because it's hard for me because I don't want there to be like this weird 180.
Right.
Right. Where suddenly she is bold and all of it. Because I don't think Feyre is a coward, but she's not Aelvid, right? Like Aelvid says what she thinks, and Feyre loves that about Aelvid, but Feyre doesn't.
Yeah.
Feyre, so it's so interesting. So I've had to come up, for me, one thing I've done is like come up with narrative reasons why she does these things. And I don't I'm saying they're canon because Chris hasn't corrected me. So, haha, they're canon. But like for me, Feyre explained to you last game, right, that the reason she hides behind things is because she could not figure out how to move in armor. So,
right.
And her father tried to teach her, and she just couldn't do it.
Yes.
So he was like, just hide. So coming up with different reasons for that has been challenging sometimes, right? Or like it's all about character creation, I think, in the beginning, not just rolling that die.
Yes, absolutely.
But also like thinking about, it's like writing a book or writing a story. What motivates that character? And Feyre, unfortunately, is motivated by failure and the risk of other people being harmed. It's been interesting to see because I don't I get motivated by failure in people thinking I'm going to fail and being like, screw you guys. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it even better than you thought I was going to. Because I'm petulant. But this is hard for me because I also feel like Feyre is more internally flawed than other characters have been. So it can be hard to lean into that. Honestly.
No, I would agree with that. I do also agree. I mean, I agree with everything you said, but I also do I also do the, if I'm, for instance, trying to show that there's been growth like in Aelvid or any of my characters as well, like you said, like when do you start making those choices? Like how much do you do? I also have to plan ahead of time. And I say plan loosely. Like, okay, I know we're going to be here this week. Like maybe when I'm talking, if I've been a little bit too, I know there was a time, for instance, in this campaign where Aelvid was there was like a moment or a session where I was too much like Adrena. I was just a little bit more immature. And I was like, oh shoot, it's not what I meant to do at all. And so I actually talked to the DM and I talked about it with my concern.
When that's the answer. I hate
know
when that's the answer.
It's so frustrating. But and like honestly, I could have done it without talking to him, but I just wanted to like talk to him about it. And then I was like, okay, like you had mentioned, I'm going to like plan out like, all right, when I talk to people, this is how I'm going to talk and make those decisions ahead of time just to make sure that I'm this way. Because there are times with Aelvid where she is more brash than like I would be just naturally. Like I can be brash and bold. But there are some times where I'm like, let's keep the peace.
But so you're very you are so good at being, you are one of the, like, I really respect just you in general, your quiet confidence. And Aelvid is confident, but I don't it's not a graceful or quiet confidence like you have. Aelvid is just, she's right up to the line of rude. She's not rude, but it's like, if this was rude, she's like,
Yeah. We're gonna tango with it.
right? She just like, it's a game of I'm not touching you with Aelvid.
Yes.
So no, you do a very good job of that.
Thank
It's
you.
always impressed.
Thanks.
So I'm curious for you, like, because we were just talking about, like, you brought up the one session you felt you were too much like Adrena.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't pick up on it,
Okay.
but that might just be. I think at that point my character was still lying to y'all, and I was like, there was 6 months of me just like constantly being in fear of y'all figuring it out
before you told us, and we're like,
yeah,
what the heck?
But how do you recover, like you specifically,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe just everybody in general, from decisions that maybe weren't great and don't really mesh with what you're wanting for your character?
What I have done is, after getting frustrated with myself and thinking like, oh, this is not what my character would have done at all, I'm so frustrated. Because then I'm like, oh, that's what maybe Caitlin would have done, or that's what my other character would have done. I have to take it and just be like, okay, well, it already happened. So how am I going to make this work for me?
Mm-hmm.
So I'll think like, like kind of like what you have mentioned, like I will come up with a story or something to go with it. For instance, with the specific experience that I just mentioned, where she was a little bit more mature, which is an Aelvid. Previously, like a couple sessions previously, and I guess in game it had been only like 2 weeks, a week to 2 weeks maybe, that someone close to her died in a battle. Snowstride. Yeah. And what I decided is that, okay, she was acting immature, if you will, or just acting, she was grieving because of that, and she wasn't being tactical. Why do I always confuse the two? She wasn't being tactful either.
That's not, but that's not Aelvid.
No. And she was just being like smarmy and like rude and just like all these things. And so that's why I decided, it's like, okay, she's grieving. She doesn't know how to process this, because she never had anyone close die in a huge combat, nor had she had like her entire village and city and clan like
yeah, it's not like your character just went through any trauma or anything.
Not at all.
I don't know. I feel like she's being a bit dramatic. Like,
oh, she also did get married like overnight, so like that was a whole thing. So there lot has happened. And so that's what I did, and I made it work for me. And it's interesting because like sometimes I feel like those moments where, maybe at first you're like, oh dang it, I messed up, but then you turn it around and you make it work for yourself, like builds on your character, and it like helps it grow even more than like maybe I would have had I not had that opportunity, because it just makes everything like so much more in depth and like emotional. And for me, like that's how you become attached to your character. That's how you become your character, is because of those flaws and the good things. What's the word I'm looking for? The flaws and the
flaws and there's another word.
Yeah, what is it? The good things.
The good things. No, that's a really good point. Like as you were talking, I was thinking about like there was a specific time, right, where DM basically told me like Feyre failed a test here because of the choices you made. And I sat back and I was like, okay, that kind of sucks, but
yeah,
also, what can I do with that?
Yeah,
right. Like, how can I? Because it goes back to like Chris said this a couple years ago, and I don't know. Chris is smart sometimes, so I remember things. But he said like there's not necessarily a wrong choice in D&D, right? There could be like a less optimal choice, or there could be a choice that has negative consequences. And for me, I was like, okay, so how can I twist that to make Feyre better or make her more interesting? And one thing for Feyre that I really loved was this idea of what happens when a hero is forced to be a hero, right? When they
Yeah.
don't want to be, right? Like Feyre, your character asked her like a couple months ago, what makes you tick? And it was very like I tried to make it very poignant if you paid attention, like if somebody was listening, that Feyre doesn't want all of this adventure.
Yeah.
Like this isn't what she wanted. She lied about who she was because she was running away from this huge, just albatross of a purpose,
Mm-hmm.
and she saw a chance to not be that person anymore and ran with it. Right. And she was like, okay, I'm going to hang out with these people for a while and then I'm going to disappear into the bygone wilds. I'm going to become a little swamp witch and I'm just going to live my life by myself.
Yeah.
So when she failed the test, and it's hard to explain what the test was without explaining all of the story, but basically somebody from her past found her and found her character wanting, right?
Yeah.
And so I thought, okay, so how can we put those things together and say, okay, so Farrah's now kind of like the reluctant hero of somebody has to do this. And it feels like I'm the only person who can save my elven city or save these people. So I'm probably going to die doing it. She's not happy about it. Right.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because all of the other characters, and we've talked about this in other podcasts too, where the point of D&D is, at least for me, because again, I have main character syndrome, is you get to be the main character
Yeah.
and be the hero, right? And it's interesting for me and challenging, honestly, to play a hero who, at the end of the day, she just wants to be a mom baking cookies.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
Like she has baby names picked out. And
Yeah.
it's challenging for me because my other characters were so about the adventure, were so ready to be heroes. And challenging doesn't mean like I don't like it. I want to be clear because I do really love this character. And there's a lot more to her than we've been able to dig at in game because really it hasn't, for lack of a better word, it hasn't been her time to shine, right? Like we haven't hit her character arc, and I tried to be really respectful when we were in your character arc, right? Like I wanted you to have these moments where like, yeah, so it's just interesting because there's also this level of trying to give your character some development, right? But also letting your other players, like letting the people you're playing with also have that room to grow, because I'm struggling with being this really reserved yet powerful yet timid, but also she wants to be bold, right? And she's trying to learn from Aelvid and trying to be all these things and trying to be like who her father raised her to be.
Yeah.
While at the same time not being what her father raised her to be. It's also complicated and fun, but that's what makes characters feel real.
Yeah.
At least to me, like my other characters were fun to play and they're real in my head. But to me, Feyre feels the most real of a character because she, to me, feels more intrinsically flawed than the other characters that I've played. And I think that's why it's challenging.
Yeah, I would agree.
Just hard. So a little bit lighter of a question, but what pieces of yourself do you think you've put into your characters? Doesn't have to be a flaw, but it can be one of the good things. Now I got to look up what the opposite of a flaw is.
I know, I can't think of the word.
The entire internet is disappointed in us, but
yeah, probably. But like,
who?
Okay. Wait, did you find it?
No, hold on.
Flaws and good things. That's all I can think of.
Flaw and good thing.
It's like the good place.
This is the bad place. If you haven't seen The Good Place, I highly recommend it. It's really fun.
It's so good.
Anyway,
did the Google not know?
Character traits. The Google, I asked for flaw, synonym or antonym, and it just gave me like I moved away from it because I'm dumb. I backed out of it. Hold on.
No. This is
like
important.
a blessing or like strength. A strength.
A strength. That's what it
There we
is.
go.
Yes.
That's the gosh darn word. Okay.
Also
Like, okay,
strengths.
let's say that. Like,
I
what
like
strengths
the
have you
good
put
things
into
better.
Elvid?
Strengths of myself that I have put into Elvid, I would say is loyalty, honesty. Let's see. I have been, and I say this very, I guess, very specifically. I there the reason why I'm hesitating is because I feel like I'm like anticipating your reaction.
Well, you're making it worse.
I know, I'm making it so much worse. I do have moments where I am very bold and blunt, but like since being a mom, I feel like unless I'm like talking to my kids, then I'm like I'm not beating my kids up. I need to make that clear. I just like I'm very bold and forward and all that stuff. But like with others, like I think since being a stay-at-home mom, I've kind of like lost that a little bit because I'm just not around other adults like in professional settings often ever. And so I've kind of like lost that. And so I have put that like back into Ilva, like, oh, I really love this part of me. I just haven't been able to show it really. And I miss it. So people who know me will probably laugh like, oh, Caitlin's not bold or blunt at all. But what I also really love about the fact of putting that in there for Ilva is a lot of what she is also are things, it's interesting, are things that I want to be or that I have a little bit of, or I used to have, but I want to get more of, which is interesting that with Feyre, she is like the opposite because they're things that you don't necessarily like. And for me, it's things that I do want. So that's interesting for our characters. But so, yeah, those are some of like her, I forgot strengths that she has that I put in there. And I do like the fact that like, as we've been playing, I've gotten more bold and I love that because I'm like, yes, I'm so excited. It's made me happier because I know you had mentioned earlier that like you can work on like if you have some flaws, you can work on them in game through like role playing. Or if you're dating or something and you don't know how to talk to someone, like it's a great way. Like, oh my gosh, this would have helped me so much when I was dating to learn how to talk to boys because I never knew how. Anyway.
Do you now? I'm
wow.
kidding.
Like its own little podcast.
Yeah. We're gonna have a side series of teaching Katie how to talk to men.
Teenage Caitlin.
Teenage Caitlin. We'll go back in time. That's interesting. Like, what's funny for me is Feyre is definitely like pieces of myself I don't necessarily love. Like, I do have the tendency to isolate when I'm upset, or I go very like insular, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or and I tend to shut down, right? Where I don't necessarily talk. Well, you know that. I'm not great at talking when I'm super upset. And Feyre's seen some stuff and been through some stuff, and she's processing a lot. So for me, it's working through this moment of trying to get her out of unhealthy patterns, right? Yeah. Where she kept secrets for so long that like trusting people is hard for her. She never lied to the group out of maliciousness. It was never, I'm going to lie to you and lead you astray and let you die. It was more, I'm lying to you because one, I'm scared if you know who I am, you're going to send me back.
Right.
Two, I'm lying because I don't want to be Feyre Osendar. Because Feyre Osendar is going to die.
Yeah.
And she doesn't get to have these chances. So for me, Feyre, I think one of the strengths that I like about myself is I think I'm pretty good at knowing what to say and when to say it. Mm-hmm. And Feyre's very tactful, where she, unlike like my husband's character, who is kind of an idiot, in the most loving way possible. I love you, Jason. Where he just said stuff, right? Where my character, she thinks through things really like a lot before she says things. And I think that's a strength, but it's also a weakness of hers, right? Where she thinks about things too long.
Right.
And she doesn't jump on it. So it's interesting for me to see, like, how do you develop that? How do you build on it? And I'm still learning. I'm not like a perfect player, right? I'm sure if Chris was here, he'd be like going, yep, that's absolutely right. Mandi is annoying and the worst.
No.
But I'm also good at several things. But it's just interesting because for me, at least in this campaign, this campaign has been the most challenging for me for a couple of reasons. Like, it's my first time playing a full caster, and not doing any melee.
Yeah.
Actually, that's not true. I did melee one time because I didn't know what else to do. And I crit and I killed someone. And I was very happy about it.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
I was a level 2 sorcerer, people. And I meleeed with a dagger and killed this guy. I crit and it was fantastic. So happy. But it has been more challenging for me to kind of like, she's so different. And it's so fun to play somebody different, right? Because I get to wear my Feyre hat, and Feyre has a horrible British accent that I'm not very good at.
No, you're great. It is fabulous.
And it's fun to be a totally different person, but for me, it's this constant grinding of when do I get to make her more bold? Because in the end, I do want her to be more bold and assertive and powerful and like step into that. And I think for me, Feyre is this exercise of, maybe Feyre isn't who or pieces of me that I don't like. I think Feyre is who I was like as a teenager, where I really wasn't assertive. I wasn't bold until like I hit 19, like right before you know, I had a lot of stuff happen when I turned 18. So I had a lot of stuff that I had to work through. And it's interesting for like, as I'm talking, I'm processing this out loud. So this is probably boring for some people, but getting her to where I am now. Because I do think I'm assertive and I'm bold and I have to be in my work, right? Like,
absolutely.
It's just what it is. And I want Feyre to get there, but it has, like, I can't just rip the Band-Aid and start playing her that way. Like, it has to get her there. And so it's hard sometimes when I make this, I've actively made decisions before where I'm like, I want to do this other thing, but Feyre wouldn't, right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to set this person on fire, but Feyre does, so we're gonna do it, you know?
Yeah. No, I agree with that. I could see all of that.
It's interesting. So, you know, I don't know, do you have anything else you wanted to talk about with this? Because like, this is kind of, it's not like a super funny topic, but there's also character creation really is so much more psychological than you think about it, than when you, like, you're not just picking a class and a race, right?
No.
You are making a human, or, you know, a person. Most
yes.
Don't just make a human. There's other races. There's also the elf, which is the best.
It is.
But
no, I mean, gosh, I feel like we could do another podcast potentially even more, about like the psychological, what's that funny little meme or whatever? I
have no idea what you're talking about, but
so like something psychologically. I'll find it. We'll find it.
But it's you know what? Funny. You're right. I think we could do it. Maybe we'll do that next time, where we'll talk about just like how to pull that in. But yes. I think that wraps things up.
Yep.
Thanks for joining us tonight. As always, we're so glad you're here. Thanks for listening. Share your tips below on how to be a better player and how to really channel your character. I can't wait to play again, and maybe I can try to do what Katie was talking about and see how that impacts my game. Well met, friends, and we'll see you on the morrow.
Bye.